Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Florence Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. My name is Sally. Today I'm joined by a bunch of foofers. We're going to have a great time today, great service, but we will start like we always do by singing Spirit of Life, number 123. We've got Jay on the camera. Ray is going to cue it up. This is music that was produced and recorded by Jeff Lovejoy. Spirit of Life. Join us. Next time we're going to get a little more rowdy, okay? So our opening words today are by Reverend Teresa Inés Soto, titled The Worth and Dignity of Every Person. Imagine that the day arrived in which we left behind valuations of people as if they were houses or bundles or resources. Persons always possessed of the knowledge that they are always somebody, never nobody. It's time to imagine a different day, an undeniable connection to the universe, freedom in abundance and peace in every heart. Welcome to FOOF, everybody. So let's see what's going on. So Sunday, the 28th at 5 p.m., we have our Zoom happy hour gathering. We welcome you to join us. The link to the Zoom invitation is in the e-blast. So come join us. We laugh a little bit. We just connect our souls with one another, don't we? It's a good place to be. Dean Schrock will host his first Tuesday meditation, Connecting with Soul, and it is always on the first Tuesday of the month, so the next one is April 6th at 5:15. All are welcome to join Dean and the others. It's a great way to connect with your soul. We have our annual celebration and visiting retreat scheduled for April 17th. Put it on your calendar now. We'll start at 10 till about noon. We've got a few twists and turns, so stay tuned for your invitation. Board meeting is the second Wednesday of each month at 3:30. And did you complete the survey online? Did you get the survey? Did you? How many? Show of hands here in the room. Who did the survey? Catherine, bad girl. Tuvia, Ashley. You gotta read the e-blast. It came out Wednesday. You better do that survey. Okay? Next week, we are delighted to have Reverend Summer with us for a special Easter message. Let us come together in the spirit and hope and love. And there was one other announcement I thought I had, but I can't think of it.
Board meeting.
I did the board meeting.
Okay.
Weren't you listening?
Yeah.
It's the second Wednesday, 3:30.
Take notes.
Gosh, darn it. Are there any? I think Tuvia has an announcement he'd like to share, after which we will light our chalice. Come on forward, Tuvia.
Tonight and tomorrow night mark this.
Is that tonight, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday?
Tonight, which is Saturday night and Sunday night, marks this year's first and second Passover Seders. Jewish leadership across our country is calling out for reform of our justice system. More incarcerated per capita in this country than any other advanced civilized nation, filling pockets of private industries running our prisons. Inadequate food and medical care, overcrowding, physically and psychologically dangerous existence, bringing inhumane suffering. Many have died from COVID. 20% of those incarcerated are totally innocent. and 50% are being excessively punished. According to Newsweek magazine, the United States has 5% of the world's population, but 25% of its prisoners.
Wow.
Right now,
Wow.
millions of Americans are locked up across the country, and while crime has been decreasing since the 1990s, rates of imprisonment are at historic highs. Americans agree that mass incarceration costs too much and achieves too little. The Jewish communities across our country join in with so many others in calling for prison and justice reform as we recall our exodus from slavery in Egypt.
Mm,
That's right.
thank you. Thank you, Julia.
Thank you.
Wow. Those are alarming statistics. Very alarming. Any other announcements? Did I forget anything? Board meeting, second Wednesday, 3:30. So we are going to have our chalice lighting this morning, and it is the part of the poem Wild Geese by Mary Oliver. And I've asked Zana to come forward. She's going to light our flame and then share in our reading. She's going to go stand over by the painting. And we're going to do this reading back and forth. So you may recall this painting, we commissioned Patty Brooks Anderson to do this painting for us, and it stands as a welcome for people when they come into our fellowship. You do not have to be good.
You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting.
You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves.
Tell me about your despair, yours, and I will tell you mine.
Meanwhile, the world goes on.
Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers.
Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clear blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely.
The world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things.
Thank you. I invite Catherine to come forward. We have our joys and concerns, and then we will move forward with a musical interlude thereafter. Come forward. Can I do the shells?
Yes. Yes, please, Nancy. Do
Nancy. Sally?
Did I change my
Oh, Ashley, are you sure you want to be a part of this? Here, this one's for Nancy.
I even wrote it down that Sally does the shells because I often forget to mention that, but somehow you got transposed into Sally. This is the joys and concerns section of our ceremony.
And boy, do I have a concern.
This is the time that we come together in our hearts and minds for prayer and energy and acknowledgement of, our community, ourselves, our community, and how we radiate out into the world. I'll start today with the joy. I am going to have my second COVID shot on Saturday. I am so excited. I mean, it's moving right along.
What time?
4:15.
I may see you there. I'll be working.
Oh, good.
Okay.
You will see me there. Great. So I have a couple of things. First, the joy. You're going to love this. David Mills and Joni are getting married in April.
Oh my!
Put two in there. Pastor Greg Wood will be marrying them at the Presbyterian Church. Boy, it's so wonderful.
It is.
And they need all of our prayers because, this is the add-on, a deep concern. Joni is going in for surgery for a non-malignant, hear this, non-malignant brain tumor that is difficult to access. But again, the joy is that she has two of the best doctors familiar with this surgery. And it's a rare condition. But these doctors are at OHSU. So how about, let's put the one in for the doctors.
Oh, yeah.
Big one.
Yes, yes, yes. Radiate those prayers out to them. They need all of the good energy, the prayers out, incantations, whatever is in what you guys do. Radiate it out to them. They deserve it so much for this start of their life together. I have another concern. Barbara Mclean, who most of you know, she's been a member for many years here, was found unconscious in her home by her neighbor. And this is a good reminder, her neighbor across the street, they check on each other in the morning. Those of you that live alone, it's a good idea, you know. She is in Riverbend Hospital. Her sister and brother-in-law are there with her, and according to Paula Harrison, that's her good friend, as you may know, her condition is serious but showing improvement. She is such a lovely lady. So she's devoted so much of her time to hospice when she was working in hospice, and she's wonderful. So again, whatever you do, prayers, incantations, spells, I'll take spells, good white witch spells, anything. Anything for her speedy turnaround and recovery. Anyone else have a joy or concern around here that would like to come up and say it? No?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I'll stay right here. Can
Okay.
you hear me? So Serena Appel got her accreditation, right?
Yes.
So she's a licensed social...
She's a social worker, I
Social
believe.
worker.
Yes.
Going to be gainfully employed. This is really good news for Florence and really
Yes.
good news for her.
Yes.
The other is, although I don't have details, thoughts go out to Judy Preisler. Many of you know Ron Preisler, a longtime member here. Judy's not doing well. I'm going to drop off some soup to them this afternoon. So thoughts are for Judy, speedy recovery.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Oh, that's for Judy and that's for Serena.
Okay.
Okay.
And maybe put in one for Ron, too.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I have some closing words here today. Because it's spring equinox last week, and Rosemary did maybe her last ceremony, we'll see, her last equinox ceremony. Mother awakens, she stirs, sending forth shoots and leaves, whispering sweet desires, coaxing forth all who seek release from the bonds of winter's night. How? First notice and name what binds you. Name the prisons of fearsome circumstances, delusionment, environmental crisis. Notice what feels stifled, blocked, and hopeless. Then circle together to turn it around. We're circled together here right today. Stir and flex your power. Stretch and moan, rock and sing, and break free at the peak. Emerge from the broken shell of winter. Feel lightened, lifted, determined to leave the old world in shards behind you. Sparkling and sovereign, stride into the gateway. Thank you. Happy spring, everyone.
Happy spring. Happy spring. Yeah, that was a lovely walk in the labyrinth last week. And, it was wet and wild and fun, and always a pleasure. So at this time, I invite you to relax into this musical interlude. It's titled Wordless Mountains, and it's performed by the First Unitarian Society of West Newton, Massachusetts.
Gentle grace.
So I'm going to offer a meditation for you today by Laura Hershey, titled, You Get Proud by Practicing. If you are not proud for who you are, for what you say, for how you look, if every time you stop to think of yourself, you do not see yourself glowing with golden light, do not therefore give up on yourself. You can get proud. You do not need a better body, a pure spirit, or a PhD to be proud. You do not need a lot of money, a handsome boyfriend, or a nice car. You do not need to be able to walk or see or hear or use big, complicated words. You do any of these things that just can't be proud. That didn't make sense. Complicated. You do not need to be able to walk or see or hear or use big, complicated words. Or do any of these things that you just can't do to be proud. Caseworkers cannot make you proud. Or a doctor. You only need more practice. You can't get proud. You can get proud by practicing. I'm going to practice a lot with this meditation next time I do it. There are many, many ways to get proud. You can try riding a horse, or skiing on one leg, or playing a guitar. Do well or not so well, and be glad you tried. Either way, you can show something you've made to someone you respect, and be happy with it, no matter what they say. You can say, what do you think? Though you know other people do not think the same way, and you can keep saying it, even if they tell you, you are crazy. You can add your voice all night to the voices of 150 others in a circle around a jailhouse, where your brothers and sisters are being held for blocking buses with no lifts. Or you can be one of those inside the jailhouse, knowing of the circle outside. You can speak your love to a friend without fear. You can find someone who will listen to you without judging you, or doubting you, or being afraid of you, or let you hear yourself perhaps for the very first time. These all are ways of getting proud. None of them is easy, but all of them are possible. You can do all of these things, or just one of them again and again. You get proud by practicing. Power makes you proud, and power comes in many fine forms, supple and rich as butterfly wings. It is music when you practice opening your mouth and liking what you hear because it is the sound of your own true voice. It is sunlight when you practice seeing strength and beauty in everyone, including yourself. It is dance when you practice knowing that what you do and the way you do it is the right way for you and cannot be called wrong. All these hold more power than weapons or money or lies. All these practices bring power, and power makes you proud. You get proud by practicing. Remember, you weren't the one who made you ashamed, but you are the one who can make you proud. Just practice. Practice until you get proud. And once you are proud, keep practicing so you won't forget. You get proud by practicing. Thank you. So at the end of the service today, there will be a song down there. It's a hymn, number 1053 in our hymnal, called How Could Anyone by Libby Roderick. It's recorded at the end of the service. I suggest you listen to it. It ties in very nicely with that meditation reading. So it's my pleasure to introduce our guest at the pulpit today. Adrian Ballou is a community minister, writer, and advocate who has formed multiple youth programs, run nonprofit communications, and helped launch or lead a number of grassroots community initiatives. The Unitarian Universalist Association recently announced the appointment of Adrian as the LGBTQIA Ministries and Gender Justice Fellow, where they build community at the Uplift Trends non-binary monthly gatherings, a fast-growing group of nearly 300 UUs of all ages. Before Adrian shares their sermon, they will first share a story for all ages. Both the story and the sermon are titled, not uncoincidentally, The Little Engine That Couldn't.
A story about engines, or The Little Engine That Couldn't. Once upon a time, there was a train going to send important supplies to children over the mountain. It left the roundhouse and started off on its journey. But before it even got to the mountain, the engine, whose name was Tabitha, suddenly broke down and the train slid off the tracks. Tabitha the engine asked for help from other engines returning back home to the roundhouse, but nobody would help. There were engines who thought they were too important and fancy to take over the job. There were engines who knew their boundaries and needed to rest. There were engines who knew how to fix Tabitha the engine, but who didn't have the tools to do it with them right then. After a long time stuck off of the tracks, waiting for help and asking everyone who came by, Tabitha the engine was ready to give up. She sighed and leaned a bit more into her axles. She thought about all the ways she could try to fix herself, but they all involved still being on the tracks, which she couldn't get back onto herself. This was in the days before radio or phones or even telegrams, and Tabitha the engine couldn't even send a message back to the roundhouse to tell them what happened. After hours and hours, a little blue engine named Polly stopped by from the roundhouse. They had heard reports of a stopped train that slid off the tracks from one of the too tired to help engines. "The roundhouse says there's nothing they can do for a train off the tracks, but I wanted to come out and try to help anyway," said Polly the engine. "We don't leave anyone behind here." Polly and Tabitha together tried everything they could think of. Polly put some wrenches on the engine. No good. Polly took a rope and hitched Tabitha to it and pulled. Tabitha moved a little bit, and then she sunk into the ground a bit further. Polly kept pulling and pulling, and then their axles started to bend. Polly, said Tabitha the engine, "I don't want you to get stuck out here too. Please don't break your axle trying to get me out." "We don't leave anyone behind here," grunted Polly the engine. "I won't let you rust right next to the tracks." Polly pulled even harder, but they were pulling an engine that was now a foot into the soft earth. Polly the engine had only ever pulled trains round the yard before, on the tracks. They had seen big fancy engines get trains back on the tracks before. Even if the roundhouse wouldn't do anything to fix an old little engine, Polly wouldn't let Tabitha the engine be stuck here. "Polly, it's okay if you can't do it. It's okay," said Tabitha the engine. "It's not okay, Tabitha. It's not okay for you to be left behind rusting here," Polly grunted as they strained against the tight rope. "Of course that's not okay," said Tabitha. "But it's not okay either for you to break down trying to help me." Polly insisted, "I have to help. If there's any way for me to help, I have to do it. Nobody else is." Tabitha gently sighed out some steam from her engine. "I think you tried all the ways you can, Polly." Polly pulled one last time, extra hard. Their axles snapped apart, and the force of their effort shot them off of the tracks. They landed nose first in the ground, wobbled a moment, and then flipped on their side. Their engine wailed a short blast, and then whistled out. "Oh, Tabby, now I can't help you any more," said Polly the engine. "Polly, I appreciate you trying, But you shouldn't have taken such a risk to help me. It was too much for a new engine like you. I didn't want you to get hurt like me," said Tabitha. "I did all this for you. You could at least thank me for trying." "Polly, that's not even what look, now we're both stuck." "What are we going to do now?" Neither of them knew. Night fell, and they stayed stuck in the mud off the tracks. Neither of them said another word. Tabitha felt so badly for Polly being here with Zer, and for having fallen off the tracks in the first place. And Polly felt so badly for not being able to save Tabitha, and still resentful that Tabitha hadn't been properly grateful for their sacrifice. Because of this, for a long time the two engines sat in the ground in silence, watching other trains that the roundhouse still sent over the mountain whiz along the tracks. And there they stayed. Many days and many nights passed. The grass started to grow up around their wheels. Animals found the stores of food meant for the children on the other side of the mountain and started nibbling and feasting. A bird started to build its nest on Polly's rails. A family of mice found a home underneath Tabitha's axles. And little tree seedlings started growing in their nooks and crannies. Over time, years and years, the tree seedlings started to become bigger and bigger. They whispered their tree conversations to each other through the leaves. At first, Polly and Tabitha the engines didn't understand. But as the trees' roots grew around them and the leaves waved over them, they started to hear their message. "We grow by staying still. We grow by staying still." "Do you hear that?" said Tabitha. Her voice grated with orange rust. "Yes," whispered Polly. Some of the other trees started singing a melody above this. "We bend when the trains go by. We bend when the trains go by." The older trees surrounding the engines joined in. "We hold the earth for the tracks. We hold the earth by the tracks." Polly creaked a little bit as they tried to smile, but their metal moved into an upward curve finally. Tabitha's voice grumbled a little as she said, "I'm sorry, Polly. I hope you understand it wasn't that I was ungrateful. I'm so glad that you cared enough to stop. Thank you for that. I appreciate you showing up so much. I just felt ashamed to be where I was, and I felt frustrated that you got hurt trying to help me. I wish you'd listened when I told you to stop." Polly let out a puff of steam and a sigh. "I understand that now, Tabitha. Thank you. I should have listened. I'm sorry I didn't. And I'm never going to want to stop helping when I can. It's hard to know what we can and can't do sometimes. It wasn't your fault." Tabitha reached out and picked up Polly's axle, which had landed near her those many years ago. "I know you can't use this for the tracks anymore, but you should have it anyway. Our axles aren't only for tracks. They're for us, too." "Oh, Tabby, you're right. I hadn't thought about it that way. It's mine, not only to try to help other people." Polly the engine cleared their throat. "And you were right about the other thing, too. I should know when I can't help." Tabitha said, "It's okay, Polly. It's okay. I think maybe we can stay rooted right here. It's not where we planned to be. It would be nice to move sometimes." "That is what we were built to do," Polly said thoughtfully. "But the trees do a lot and live their whole long lives from right where they are. Maybe, even if we can't do as much as them, it's okay to be off the tracks." The trees whispered and sighed. The leaves rustled. The mice squeaked. And the two engines hummed alongside them. The Little Engine That Couldn't. Sermon. As a child, I put a lot of stock into the little engine story. Although I was already somebody who put lots of effort into school, and who was well rewarded by that effort, topping mountains of assignments, I took the message to heart. I will try even harder, I told myself. I think I can. Around me, the tracks for each person in the school were laid out to the horizon, or so I thought. We would all go zipping further and further down our paths easily. We could do it. It's what we were built for. But there weren't tracks for everyone. Not everyone had axles or fuel or working wheels. I wasn't seeing them, but people were off the tracks all over the place. While in school, I was on a treadmill to a certain version of success. I didn't always stay there. Going off the rails started slowly for me and then rushed with a jerk, taking me off the track. It happens to so many of us. No track is perfectly smooth. No engine built for the inevitable bumps, brakes, needs for replacement gear, or the end of the tracks entirely. Some engines never even leave the station. We're told that it's a terrible thing to go off the rails. We're warned away from truly helping people get back, too. Off the rails is unexplored, taboo. Especially in the mythology of the white suburb I grew up in, where success is a meritocracy, and where it is in reach if you just do what you should. So, how did I find my path? The singing trees in my life have been the disability justice movement. Before I started realizing how much my own body and mind needed space to heal, I encountered disability advocates in my community. It's okay, they said to me, each other, themselves. It's okay. It's good to be us. They advocated to make sure those who could and who wanted to could get back on the tracks, to make sure people's engines got fixed if it was fixable. They also advocated, too, for the valid goodness, as well as the hard parts, of being stuck in the earth, near or far from any trains. We don't live in a world where all who can easily help do. We don't live in a world where all who would help can do so. Some of us break trying to help others. We should find ways to be in touch with ourselves enough to know when we might not be able to. I think I can't. I think I can't. I think I can't. It's okay to say. It's not negative thinking. Knowing your limits can be joyful as well as sorrowful, guilty as well as renewing. Saying yes to what you can and want to do can be elating. So can saying no to what we can't do or what we don't want to do. Not every place off the tracks is a good place to be. It's not easy, often. It's not often easy on the tracks either. There can be real consequences to choosing not to help, as there can be to not breaking yourself trying. It can be hard sometimes to know the difference between pushing or pulling hard or using up too much fuel. There are times to go full throttle anyway, if we're able to, but those times are much less often than we like to think so. Even in this world, being able to stop is sometimes a privilege in itself, even its own track. It does not mean that it is a bad thing to do. Some privileges are human rights that not everyone can access. The privilege of rest or healing will not go to someone else if you deny yourself. It's okay to know your limits, to say no, and to find a life where you are. So, how do we decide how to spend our energy? How do we know when it's too much? The powerful writer Leah Lakshmi Piepshna Samarasinghe has more than a few ideas about this. One thing that she has said is, if it isn't healing, it isn't justice. If it isn't healing, it isn't justice. If it isn't healing, it isn't justice. So much of the work we do to try to make the world a better place, to stick up for our own and others' human rights, So much of it is deeply draining, causing secondary trauma, deepening stress and illness, or even causing it. So much of living in the US, set up as it is with long hours and low pay for most, is deeply draining. For those of us living with discrimination and oppression, the stress takes years off our lives. The stress takes years off our lives and causes many health problems and worsens others. In this context, what if the solutions to these problems were dreamed up and carried out differently? What if they were done in a manner that was an antidote to long hours, stress, exhaustion, and the penalizing specter of productivity to the point of working to death? What if there was space for life, for love, for joy, for celebration? What if there was space for rest? The problems we are facing in our lives and in the broader world will not end if we pull an all-nighter. They will not end if we never slept again. The work of creating a better world is, as Leah Lakshmi Piepshna Samarasinghe puts it, a marathon, not a sprint. It is a marathon, not a sprint. This is our whole lives. This will continue for generations. Working for justice, taking care of each other, these are both the same thing. How can we do this blessed work? How can we weave it into our lives? How can it be a life? How can it be a community? How can we make it healing right now? How can we fill this sacred work with joy? How can we fill this sacred work with rest? How can we fill this sacred work up to the top with boundaries and limits that set us free to love each other fully? Of course, I can't decide for you how to spend your time or how to approach your life. Each of our paths are different, and thankfully, we each can choose how to answer these questions for ourselves. I invite you to consider how to apply these ideas in your own life. There isn't just one way to make change in the world. There are as many ways as there are living beings on this planet. What are some ways that are healing and joyful for you? Maybe you love baking. Have you considered baking for frontline protesters? Do you bake for houseless people where you live? Maybe you love being around children. What are some ways that you can help ensure the children in your community are cared for and the adults have the support they need, and their adults have the support they need? Maybe you enjoy organizing schedules. I can tell you that there are a lot of grassroots efforts out there that could use your help. And maybe you need to rest, or maybe you need to focus on work or your family, and that's okay too. That's important too. Resting is productive. Let me say it again. Resting is productive. Disability justice tells us that we are not valuable because of what we do. We are valuable just by existing. Even if we never did anything at all, we are holy and important. Unitarian Universalism tells us that every person has inherent worth and dignity. Not only if you successfully completed multiple deadlines in a 60-hour week of work, not only if you got straight A's in school, not only if you make a 6-figure salary, every person. You have worth and dignity, and you do not have to do anything to earn that. Unitarian Universalism does expect us to act for justice in the world, though. It does build in covenants asking us to be accountable to harm. Inherent worth and dignity is not a free pass on that. But it is saying that you matter, not in spite of, but including anything you might think are imperfections. That you are whole as you are. That you, being in community and in right relationship, matters. That you owning up to mistakes and growing from them matters. That you resting and fulfilling yourself and honoring your limits matters. Like Polly and Tabitha the train engines, we can get caught up in our own stories of what's happened, what's gone wrong, and our own stories of, if only I could, or I wish they hadn't. It's important to communicate with each other, like Polly and Tabitha do, about what's happened, about the fallout, if and when we fail each other, or when we can't show up the way someone needs. That happens. It doesn't mean that anybody is wrong, or that those needs weren't important. It's probably a good idea not to wait until there are trees growing in our rusting metal frames before we talk to each other, though. If we're able to do it sooner, it can help us heal sooner. It can help us make a life right where we are. Adjust to right here and what we can do and who we are right now. For me, disability justice means all of this and more. It is a tree song amidst a world that would keep us racing on the train tracks. It is a song of rootedness, of connection, of worthiness. It is a song of rest.
Thank you, Adrian, for both the story and your sermon. Very much appreciated. So for those listening right now, Adrian suggests that you might prepare for our Zoom gathering tonight. Use art supplies, notebooks, your mind, music, or movement. Feel about what you received from the sermon and story today. What are ways you resonated with it? What are ways you felt challenged? Where are places you noticed that you could use some more support or healing? When we meet tonight on Zoom, you may wish to share your responses and ideas. Thank you. You know, there are many organizations that have started here in our community, perhaps with the thought of, how are we going to do this? Were they the little engine that couldn't, and now they are? You know, Florence Food Share, along with many other of our community partners, has become very successful in what they do, helping people in this community who are hungry, who are food insecure, and open their doors with their gardens, their vegetables, oh my gosh, all that fresh produce. And the money that they raise helps to keep that organization going. So what can you do? You can help Florence Food Share today and all the way through April as we raise money to send to them so they can continue to keep their doors open to help those in need. You can also consider a contribution to the Florence Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, that is, FOOF, right? We appreciate your contribution. Your pledge payment of support always is a pleasure to receive as well. You can make any of those payments or contributions in a check that you can mail to us at P.O. Box 2502, Florence 97439, or you can go onto our website and click on the donate button and make your requests known. Some people do that and they contribute a certain portion to the community partner and a certain portion to FOOF. We want to make it as easy as possible. Thank you. So I invite Rhema up. We're going to extinguish our chalice. And these words come to us by Martha Kirby Capo. Our time together is finished, but our work is not done. May our spirits be renewed and our resolve strengthened as we meet the challenges of the week to come. This chalice flame is extinguished until we ignite it again with the spark of our communion. I invite Catherine to come forward with our closing words before we end with our peace song. Catherine, come on up.
These are beautiful, by the way. Closing words by E. Williams. We are worthy, not because of what we produce, but because of who we are. We are divine bodies of light and darkness. You are not worthy because of what you offer, not because of what is in your mind, nor for the support you give others. Not for what you give at all. You are worthy and are whole just because. In this great turning, in this great pandemic, in this radical readjustment and alignment, we are not disposable, we are needed. Recognizing our liberating and whole selves, honoring them and others as we strive for abundant communities, abundant lives, abundant relationships, and abundant values and cultural manifestations. We are worthiness personified. I like that. To everyone that has the courage, the power, and the ability to co-create what we want and need while rooting in what we can't lose and who we are, you are the visionary. You are the hope. You are our ancestors' dreams. No, you might not ever end up on some list somewhere, but you are on a list in someone's heart. Isn't that the truth? Everyone is on someone's list in their heart. Oh, and mind. And if it's in how you move in the world so people can see by example, you are the embodiment of what we need. Thanks to all that are the embodiment. The embodiment not of productivity, but the embodiment of radical love, care, and sanctuary. It's time, embodiment time. Embodiment, living one's values out loud. Let me every day live my values out loud. Let us every day live our values out loud. Embodying our values, not the productivity quotient. Beyond productivity, past productivities, true embodiment, life. So it is. Thank you.
So Tuvia, come on forward. We've got Tuvia. He's going to help us close out our service today by singing the peace song. You are all welcome to come back up. If you know the words, please share your voice with Tuvia as we sing our peace song. Stay right where you are and enjoy those pieces of music that we're going to insert. So thank you, everybody. We'll see you at Zoom, 5 o'clock.